Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have a rather large piece of the semi-gloss cardstock here that we're going to try to build a fairly large scene out of. I don't really know the the composition build, the compositional build. I know a little bit of what I'm going to be doing. I want to work some rocks in here. There's going to be some large trees. And then at the base of the trees, sequoias or whatever they might be, I'm going to put some quaking aspen into the mix just to add that splash of bright colors and to contrast against the other tones that are going to be within this piece. But let's see how it goes here. So my general idea was I wanted to play around with the skin tone markers a little bit more on my tree trunks. I used it once and I thought they worked great for kind of warmer wood tones in terms of the bark, and I wanted to play around with that a little bit more, so why not play big here on this piece. And I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to have a little bit of a kind of a waterside area and a bit of a meadow. But let's see how this goes. Okay, so hopefully my black pad is nice and inked up because there's going to be a lot of things going on in here. All right, so let's start off with this. If I have things that are kind of open, imagery that's open, in other words, they're not solid or just textures, I tend to stamp those first because, especially if it's in the foreground, because I can mask these off and stamp the other objects around them, okay? So you have to go with these first. Open objects, okay? In other words, things that you can't just stamp over the top of them because they'll show right through. So we can stamp these out and mask them off accordingly, okay? When I look at just that one piece, now I want to do like a 11 by 17 cave piece one day, which maybe I'll do. Hello, Maureen, Sandy, and Linda. How are you? Is everyone staying nice and cool? I don't know if the temperatures are, where all this kind of flooding is going on. I don't think it's not cold or anything like that, but I don't know. It seems like we're going through a heat wave out this way. All right, let's go with this boulders, Brookside boulders again here. Okay, so I'm creating a little bit of a pond right down in this space down here, and then we'll have some of these large trees in here. These aren't going to be looking like boulders right next to a very large tree like this, but we'll see how it goes in terms of I don't know, kind of visual references. All right, let's see here. Maybe I don't know, maybe I want some smaller rocks up this way. Or should I just, let's mix it up here. Let's go with these boulders with lichen right here. I'm trying to come up with a good shape here. You want to kind of break up, anytime you're working on rectangles like we are most of the time, in terms of scenes, you kind of want to break up all of these 90-degree angles a little bit with, different types of, naturally curving visual paths throughout here. So that's what I'm usually trying to do in these pieces. I really should play around with working on ovals and things like that more often with cutouts with like a cricket or something like that. I think with cricket you can do any type of size too, as long as you have the cutting mat for it and it can fit through the machine. But I don't know, something like this might be interesting. With the oval out here instead of always working on 90-degree angle shapes, squares, rectangles, slimline cards, etc. The only problem is it's, it's formatting or something like that. You don't really mail out like I don't know, I guess you could, but see people mailing out like circular things or oval shapes within an envelope too often. But they look good though, in terms of compositions. All right, so boulders with lichen right here, and I can come in with another one like here. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create this little path like this, and then we'll come down again like this. So I don't want to just create this arc like that, which you could, but I want to create an interesting kind of in and out type of thing. With this curving base layer line like that. So I can come down with this again, or I can come down like here too. So it'd be like maybe it'd be like more like a stream like that. See, if you come up here, then it's like a little pond. But if you come like this, then we can create this passageway of like water down this way. Maybe that'll be more interesting. Let's try that. Let's break this up a little bit like this, and maybe a little bit over here. I'll come in like this maybe. So just like this, then you can come in like this, and this can go down like this, and we go up that way or something of that sort. All right. Those large scenes, Linda, they look, you know what I mean? When we get done with like large scenes like this, I've always been looking at these floppy pieces of cardstock, that are, I don't know, whatever, just loose, gigantic scenes. But when they're like framed up, it's like, oh my God, that's, they look like so much better framed. Because it puts them into context. We're not going to make a card out of this, or something like that. So I've usually haven't done anything with them in the past, but it's like, oh, okay. I see what these really should look like, or what they could look like potentially. So yeah, kind of puts a different spin on it. So learning things about, I don't know, whatever, the benefits of framing, I guess. Especially with last week's live stream, that Crimson Conjuring piece, that thing looked a heck of a lot better, with the glass tiles, on there. And until I put those glass tiles on, something was kind of missing off of that thing. And it's like, okay, if we're going to go that far, then I'm putting in the extra big crystals on there just to frame things off a little bit more. And it was like, okay, this thing is like finally coming together, and it's like it's so much cooler looking with that. So I don't know. There's all kinds of other things we can do with framing that I just never really explored, I don't know. Have you guys framed your pieces up there? Hello, Jeannie. Cynthia. How are you? All right. Oops. I didn't get that piece right there. You just stab another piece like that rock in there or something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna have this go upwards like this a little bit. So I don't know if I want to do that, or if I want to just kind of put this a little bit higher. I'm getting a little bit of redundancy though with the same kind of rock shape too many times, which I like to avoid. Let me see. There's an artfoamy of the Brookside of the boulders of lichen here. Let me see where that is. All right, yeah, actually it's a little bit smaller, so let's use this one too. So, by the way, I'm stamping this out with dye-based ink because I'm going to come in here with the alcohol inks and do a lot of coloring that way. But on this one, I think I'm going to work like I did on that Alluring Acadia piece, where I just did grayscale. It was a grayscale study, basically. But then I just toned it in like you would be. It's kind of the approach like black and white photo tinting, or colorizing black and white photos. you go into you kind of establish all your lights and darks with just grayscale, and it's really a fast way to work. And then you kind of just tint everything in with color over the top of it, and it worked pretty good with that autumn series. Just coloring in all the trees and everything like that. I had to do it twice though. After I got some brighter colors that came out later on. So I just added a link to that on the Facebook posting of that. I completely forgot that I added more colors and kind of vibrancy and texturing until I don't know, I came across like a photo of it or something like that when I was looking through my photos library. It's like, oh, did I do something extra to that scene? And I did. It was like, I did it like 3 years later or something like that. Anyway, so we can get, really bright tones, even if you do a complete grayscale study. And it's a good way to work, too, if you ever want to kind of, tighten up on kind of your sense of lighting. I mean, I do it for myself, too. I kind of bone up on my, I don't know, whatever my light and shade sensitivity. By just doing grayscale once in a while. And like I said, the grayscale doesn't have to be the final result. You can tint in, your grayscale piece with some additional colors, especially with like alcohol inks and the availability of acrylic paint pens and things like that these days of different sizes. Okay, so let's go up really high with this one. Okay, so if we've established these rocks in here, and if there's going to be a bunch of these trees up this way, because there's all these rocks down here, it would probably be a good idea if you establish some additional rocks going away from this stream, you know what I mean, in a couple little spots at least, so it's not just right next to the water, so we'll have to do that. Linda, you can get those. I don't know. Look online. The frames I got are like 4 packs or 5 packs or something like that. And they're really cheap that way. Happy Friday, Ginger. Okay, so that being said, with the rocks, all right. So I think I'm going to have this kind of coming out of some of these. Let's see how these are gonna go. I need a little bit of like grass, I think, in between some of these trees. I can put them right into the rocks, which you see, but probably not this type of tree. It's really big. Okay, so we're gonna hit some areas with the sedge filler or grass texture. Okay. Maybe I should hit that one with grass texture. I don't know. I'll use both just for a little bit of a change in textural forms here. I'm getting some of this into my rocks down here, but it's texture on texture, so it's not, going to matter. Some people are, shocked at something like that because they're not used to overlapping imagery like that, because a lot of images are outlines, but these are tonal stamps, so you don't really need to worry about that. There are some lines on some of the stuff where you wouldn't do that, and you want to do a little masking off, but when it's just a little bit of texture like that, it's not going to matter. Not in the end result, after we get all the colors down especially, okay? All right, so let's add a first layer of our grassy textural forms like that. And we'll put our first layer of trees. Then we'll put on some additional textures behind and around those trees. And then we'll, just build it up accordingly, okay? All right. So let's see here. I've used these on some big compositions. I don't think I've done it on 11 by 17. I haven't done a lot of 11 by 17s. I think I did one, I don't know, it was about like this big. Yeah. I don't know, it was a piece of scrap paper recently. Okay, so here's an art foamy version of the tree trunk. It's 9 inches tall, so pretty crazy. If you don't have a tree trunk, you know, or like the art foamy version of it, tree trunk, I saw where someone did this recently. You can take even the rubber version of tree trunk, this is the smaller art foamy version, and you can just kind of go like this up top. And if you get this, you know, this portion of the trunk, it's not too bad. I wouldn't go, you know, have it go like this. And then up here, you know, I'd probably go up to about right here where it doesn't flare out too much because, you know, trees don't do that. But you can do that. You can expand the height of your tree trunk just by stacking it on top of, you know, one another, kind of head to head or top to top. Top to top, as opposed to going like this and then stamping this up there. You go like this and then, you know, you go up again like that. All right, so let's mask this off and let's go about like so. With the art foamies, you don't have to use too much pressure, but I'm standing up just because, you know, to get a little bit more leverage. The art foamies, you know, the foam contours to the paper, so it's not, you know, you don't really have to press that hard. My ink dried out a little bit while I was blabbing away, but you know, you don't have to press too long on that. All right, let's go with another. Let's see. Let's establish where the scene, what the scene's going to be about. I think I'm going to have some. I think I'm going to have some lighting coming. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, have it coming in from this side into here like this. I think this is going up this way, kind of. The angle is like this, and so I'll have the lighting come in like that. You know, as opposed to down this way. See, if I have the lighting coming this way, it's kind of parallel with that. I think this will counter it a little bit more, so it's going up like this, and then, I don't know, we'll have something out that way. What I'm talking about here is, you know, this is, you know, when you have these diagonals in scenes, they say that it creates a little bit more, it's the potential for a little bit more visual kind of drama in a scene. Not that, you know, things can't be horizontal or vertical, you know, northern lights or something like that, streaky things like that, but it just creates a different type of kind of dramatic visual. Because people, you know, when people are looking at your pieces, your cards, not just scenes, any type of composition, you know, they're starting somewhere. When they look at it, when they open a card up and they're looking at it, or they pull a card out, you know, they're looking at it, and they're looking at it in the order of kind of, I don't know, whatever visual sequencing, dominance. You know, your eye will go to certain things. Probably first, usually if there's like a, I don't know, maybe something like a dramatic or a dominant visual, or it could be a word stamp, you know, happy birthday or something like that, you know, because we naturally kind of read something. So, so I'm trying to kind of work with that idea in mind. So in other words, I'll have some like light beams coming in this way. And, you know, we'll create a little bit of a visual path. You know, people will come in like this, maybe the bottom of the scene, going up this water, and then going back on a light beam. Yeah. It's like, I just I'm describing this type of thing or explaining it. It sounds a little bit corny, but nevertheless, you know, that is the case, you know. And then, you know, if you have like little things in your scenes or your card, whatever it might be, you know, people are drawn to other people or animals or living things, you know, that type of thing. And that'll be their final kind of landing spot in terms of the visuals in a piece. All right, another one piece right here. Oops, I just skewed it. As I moved my hand over, this stamp moved over a little bit. You can't even tell though. All right, and okay, that's it with this one. I have other things to stamp in here. Let's go like this. Do this a little. Okay, let's do this one a little bit higher. Okay, so you go in like this. You work your layers like this. We have our first layer of trees, and then you just build up another layer like in here. Now, you know, it wouldn't have been a problem if I just established all of that sedge filler in the background too, and you know, we just proceeded with the trees. But I think it's, you know, while I say it's not a problem if some of this texture goes into that tree trunk, you know what I mean? If you know, I just assume not have it in there, but you know, this first layer right here, you know, in order to work around things, it would have been kind of more of a hassle. Because I'd like to, you know, kind of establish things kind of naturally and without having to think too far ahead. But now, see, you know, I don't have those little textures, you know, in throughout this whole thing. But like I said, it's not really going to matter too much. And I don't know if anyone even knows what I'm talking about. I'm going to have these textures of this grass in here, but we're going to be like going into it with all of these different colors anyway. So it's like, I don't know if you're really going to be able to see the textures in there. All right, so these are some smaller trunks. I'm wondering if I want to do that one or the smaller, this trunk right here. We're going to have some variation with the aspens in there as well, so maybe I don't want to go with these ones. Unless these ones are behind. Well, let's see how this goes here. Maybe I should add this in right now. Yeah, let's do that. Here's another, okay, so here's what I'm thinking here too. Sometimes you go with like all the same trees or something like this in here. So it creates a certain type of framework, and then you have one of these in here. It's like your eye will be, you know, like totally drawn to it. I don't know if I want to do that, like the lone, you know, the lone aspen, you know, type of thing in here. I think I want some throughout. And then for my focal point, you know, is going to be like a deer or something like that. I was thinking about that. But it would be interesting to do like a really big piece like this with big, huge towering trees or something like that. And, to, you know, maybe something smaller than this, have like this lone little tiny, you know, different type of tree in the background that's like colorful or something like that. And you can have all the rest of it kind of like grayscale, or, you know, you can have some colors in it or something like that. But for the most part, kind of monotone, and then have like one kind of bright little, you know, whatever, the little tree that could type of thing in here with, you know, some light beams or something like that coming down on there. Something like that. That might be kind of interesting. Let's see. Hello, Vintage Scrap Girl. Hello, Annie. Annie, I got your piece. I'll drop you a note later. People, if you ever want me to take a look at your pieces, if there's any questions, send it on over. That's what I'm having Annie do as a follow-up lesson. But looking good with the tweaks there on lighting. Speaking of that, Annie, I want you to do one of these pieces that I'm doing here. In terms of the style here, I want you to do a grayscale piece sometime, and to practice your lighting just with grayscale. And then you can tend to, you know, you can add your colors after that or something like that. But I want to see a grayscale piece. If you just do like one or two grayscale pieces where you shade and color, that's all it really takes. Well, I don't know, but I mean, do more of that, and it'd be even better. But if you do like a bunch of shading with just monochromatic grayscale or something like that. Or I guess it could be a different tone, like warm tones. You can go with tans and sepia color or something like that, antique looking color scheme or something like that. That would work too. But that's what I always recommend to people. And that's what I do with people or I used to in what I called Stampscapes 201, the second class. The first card we did was just all grayscale, and it was to sensitize them to a tonal range within the scene, and that really, and some people like that, even more than color work. But yeah, okay. So what colors did I use on my Aspens before? All right. Almost forgot how to do this. I haven't done it in a while. So we're going to do this. Okay, so this is going to be done in golden tones, but we need to create some contrast in here. And most of the lightest of colors are going to be done in the paint pens. Okay, so we're going to stamp this one out darker than what I ideally want it to be, when it's finished, but I need to establish some sort of foundation for it, and in order to use the paint pens over the top of that. Okay, so in other words, you don't just stamp this in like yellow. Okay, you want to go with your darker tones and something for the yellow tones in the paint pens, the oranges and yellows and greens or something like that, to stand out against, okay, because we're going to be doing like light tones on top of dark, or not, not super dark, but darker. So, God, I forgot my combination though. Let's see. I think I use pens on this right here. It's not super critical, but I want to be reasonably not accurate, but okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of brown on this. Okay, so I just kind of did a little spattering. You can see where it's moist like that. Okay, I just want to get a little bit of that tone down on there. And then this orange pad's like trashed here. Let me see if I have a different orange. I don't know if I do. Here's Potter's Clay. Memento. Let's see. Let's go like this. All right, so can you see that? It's all streaky. And yeah, maybe this is a little bit too orangish. Okay, the Potter's Clay did the trick, I think. So this is a brilliant yellow right here. So as I color this, what I'm doing is I'm blending out those other colors that I've laid down on there. Okay. This is how we used to do all the coloring as Stamp in the Hand Company for their colored tops. See, and then you just kind of roll it off your pens like that. This pen tip's getting pretty frayed, okay? But this pen's like 30 years old. It's older than most of you watching. All right. Okay, and let's see, what do we have here? Number 5 yellow. This is the newer pen right here. And by newer, it's probably like 20 years old or something like that. The old barrels just had, all these colors like this, on there. And then they changed it to these black, kind of more dramatic pens. Maybe it saved him money though, because they didn't have to do dedicated, barrels for every single color. They can just print, the name of the color on kind of a standard, barrel. That's what they started doing on their pads too. All right, so I don't know if I got it there. I haven't done a lot of this type of coloring in I don't know, a little while. So let's see where this. Maybe I'll have a little of this tree going in front of this tree right here. I was thinking about having it all in back of it. Now that black and white is going to show right through this, but remember I'm gonna put the paint pens over the top of it, so I don't think that's going to be a problem here. All right, so this tree goes down to about right here. Again, it's stamped out really light, so let's just go right here. My big problem is it's what am I going to do with like getting, if I want a tree trunk behind this one, because this one's going to be lighter than, something darker in the back. If I want to do that, I don't know if I might not do that. It's easy to go lighter in the background with everything, and then everything that gets closer to you gets darker. It's harder to do something light against dark, because it, if you're working with, the dye-based inks, they're going to be transparent. Like I said, I'm going to add in things over the top of it, but you see, you get even the grass showing through. But the paint pens are going to be over the top of it. But I think that color looks pretty good, though. That'll fade out a little bit as it dries, because it's also on a non-glossy cardstock, so it's going to absorb into there a little bit more. But let's go with this. This tree took up more space than I thought it would, which maybe is good, because I only need like one more right in here to fill up this entire space. But I'm trying to think if I want to do that high, or if I want to do it like low down here, coming up from behind that little... Oh, okay, I think I just solved my problem here. If this is like a little bit of a ridge right here, and this goes down below it, then I don't think I'll have trees up here. Or I guess I could, but let's go... like that. All right, let's just start coloring and I'll figure it out when I get there. I'm rambling on a little bit here because I just don't know what I want, where I want this composition to go. All right. I just realized something. I hardly ever stamp out kind of depictions of summer, because it's like, what does summer really look like? Like fall has its own, look to it. Definitely dramatic. And not really in Southern California, but different areas of California with fall foliage. Winter, of course, has its own look, and then spring, right? But summertime. I don't know. What are you gonna, what are we gonna do? Is like we're gonna stamp out like dry, dry grasses or some brown grasses, and kind of a dried out terrain or something like that. I guess there's greens or something like that, but there's, I don't know. It's not as distinct a look or something like that that we'd want to depict, at least. Okay, let's go like this. I have a lot of area to fill in right here, so I was going to stamp it low, but I decided to go high here. get a little bit of extra pressure around your mask. Like that. I missed right in the middle there. It's because I had two masks like this. So this area right here was a lot higher. So you just go like this here. And like I said, it's going to get filled in with other terrain or other imagery anyway. But you can just take this like this and just stamp that out to fill in accordingly. Okay. All right. Now we need to get some other color between these trees. This is the hassle part for me. I hate doing like real narrow kind of areas within scenes. I mean, it's not a problem or anything like that, but it's a little bit more work than I like to do. All right, so let's just make this one quick because that's a little peekaboo kind of part of this tree. All right. It's a triple mask. That. All right, which tree did I ink up? I think I inked up that one. Okay, and how about in between there? See, like in here, it's so narrow. Like right there, I missed a little bit. I mean, not extreme, but that's the type of thing, you know, where I like to avoid doing a lot of masking. We fill in with, you know, additional inks and things like that, or, you know, alcohol pens or whatever, but it's still... Yeah, see right down there, it's hard to get like right in there with this mask and that narrow space there. Let me see if I can angle this and get that in there a little bit more. There we go. All right. Oh, you know what I just thought of too? Maybe I should have left some space in here for some of this foreground foliage right in here. I know, I'll do that with the, maybe I'll do that with the leaves stamp. It'll just represent some, like another closer aspen, but just the branches maybe. Let me see if that'll work here. All right, if these are going to be yellow, do I do them now? Because if this water is going to be kind of bluish, because I can't stamp this in yellow on top of the blue because it'll look green. So let's do it now, and I'll just try to work around it when I get to it. I think. Certain techniques are being invented, like, at the moment. It's a good thing when you kind of play around with things and you try new things with it. You can learn something with every scene. That's great. Not that I want to experiment with every scene that I ever do, but, you know, if it comes out, it's always a really kind of a nice kind of perk, you know, or additional positive. All right, so let's see if that worked out at all. mixing on this, blending on this, the art foamy version of this. Okay, now like I said, these rocks and everything, I'm going to show right through it, of course, because these are transparent yellows, but I'll try to remedy that with the paint pens later on. One of the things I might try on this one, just because it's big, is I might try, you know, doing my initial toning on this, and I might do some layering on here later on with where you seal it off a little bit, and then you go on there with the paint pens after, and then maybe you seal it off again, you hit it with paint pens or something like that. Maybe we might be able to achieve a little bit more depth that way, I'm not sure. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, my pen's all muddled here. Now, you can re-ink these pens too. If you don't have the exact color, like there's a bunch of different colors. This one here has a re-inker for their ink pad, but if you ink it up, if you ever have dye-based inks like this, and let's say you have a pen that's just dry, and I don't know, maybe that brand of pens doesn't come with a re-ink or something like that, but you can usually get back into the reservoir with all kinds of watercolor pens just by opening this back portion right here. And then there's usually this reservoir right here, and you can fill it up, okay? But even if you don't have a re-inker that coincides with this, now you're not going to refill it with like a dye-based ink, watercolor pen with a pigment ink or something like that. But if you have the same type of ink, you can just fill it up with that. Or if, like if I didn't have this brilliant yellow, okay, which is a little bit more of a goldish, tone yellow, but you had this re-inker for this one right here, more of a neutral color yellow, you can just fill this one up with that one, and that ink is going to mix with the residual ink in that reservoir in there. It'll probably look the same, at least for a while, unless you end up re-inking it up several times, it should work just fine. So even if you cross brands and stuff like that, I mean, I wouldn't make a habit of it, if you really love Potter's clay, Memento or something like that. But if, you know what I mean, if you had a Marvy, number 7 orange, and it didn't matter to you too much, and you're thinking, okay, I can either get Memento Potter's clay, which I don't use very often, or I can just re-ink it with some of the Marvy number 7. Just put a couple drops in there. It should be fine. But if it comes down to getting that, or a bunch of new colors that you think you might be using more, then I say why not do that. Hello, Texas Dreamin'. Glad you like these big trees here. They should be fun to color in here. Triple masking is huge for me. I never do it, huh, Linda? I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I don't know. I don't know. It's like any kind of the tedium in terms of processes. I don't like to do too much. All right. There's a lot of color on this. There's a lot of muddled color on this. But again, okay, so if you just joined in, these right in here, they're going to be like these brighter tones of yellow and everything like that. But that'll be done with the paint pens over the top of these kind of established foundational, kind of image colors in here. So they're kind of providing me like a little bit of a guideline too, for the eventual colors that I use right over the top of them. Okay, let's see. Oh my god, my brilliant yellow pad. I forgot it's like totally crumbling. There's a couple of these really old pads of mine that are really starting to crumble. They're okay to kind of dip into with, some like, my ink applicator. Usually I'm using paper towels these days, but, you know, it's kind of a mess. I don't know if you can see those like little crumbs of that pad that are on there now. These pads are like really old. Some people are taking their old, I think, right? Their old ink pads. They do this with the color box stylus tools too, but I think there was some different foam or something like that, or maybe that there's that foam for pads or something like that. I think you can cut off a piece and just replace that. It's not the same material, but I thought someone was telling me that they were doing that with their Marvy pads. I don't know. Maybe it was someone in the chat here. I don't know, or in a previous live chat they might have said that. All right. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. So those will be look at that. It just like got like lighter and lighter from left to right. I should throw some red ones over here or something like that, but I can do that with the paint pens when I eventually get to it. But all right, so that is the basic foundation. I'm trying to think if I want to add in some additional trees like these ones behind these lighter trees. Do I want to go dark, light, and then I don't know if it'd be dark in the background there, but I don't know how that would look. I should try it out though, just because I should be trying new things on here. Let's do it right here for sure, and let's see how this is going to be. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up. I'm going to blot it off, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of wipe off the bottom of this, or I'll mask off this tree, and I'll stamp this. I'll mask off this one too, and I'll have like a much lighter tree trunk in the background. So I guess I could do it in a different color, but I think I'll do it in black. Doing it with the foamy is a little bit tricky too, because the foamy is kind of might retain more black ink than rubber would. Actually, that is really light, so maybe I took off too much. Okay, so let's get this started right here, or set up here. Actually, let's do this. Lighting is going to be coming from over there, so let me have it like this. Okay, so I'm going to block this off like that, and then on the side of this tree going like that, I'm going to wipe off a little bit more ink on the side of the tree that's going to be facing my light source. Okay, so hopefully it stamps off a little bit lighter, and then lighter again on the left side of it. Okay, so let's see how this goes. I'm just wondering if it's going to stamp out lighter, because am I also pressing harder on this side? I don't know. I didn't wipe it. This side retained a lot of ink. Okay, so I'm going to have to do... This tree is going to be a lot darker than this one right here, so I'll darken it in like that. But that doesn't look too bad where it's going down into that tree. I think I can create some depth with no problem with that aspen tree in there, like that. Okay. So I think I know what to do now. So let's go like this. Okay, and let me kind of stamp out much more kind of aggressively right here. And then this one's going to be over here. Okay. Or let's go like this right here. Okay. So I'm going to have to Okay, so that's going to go up to about right here, right? So from down here, we're going to wipe off a lot of this ink, like this. And then this side is going to be lighter like that. So let's go like that. That's removing a lot of ink like that. There's a lot of ink on there. Okay, let's see how this is going to go here. Okay, that's fine. And let's see here. That is really, really light right there, which I wanted, but now I'm wondering if I wanted a lighter aspen tree behind there. Let's do that. Let's go with the smaller aspen tree. All right. The thing that's taking a long time in this video is just coloring up these aspens here. All right, let's just go like this. I want this really light in value. So let's just go with a couple different yellows here. Let's see, like that. And then let's blot that out like that. And then let's wipe off a little bit like that. So when you blot it off, it looks like more distant. And then you can also kind of control kind of specific light direction, you know, where it's light is coming from over here, that way by wiping off this side here in addition to that, okay? And then where this is going to be going down into this tree right here, I'll wipe off the bottom portion of this, okay? So it's like dry and then light here and then light down here and a little bit darker up top, okay? I probably won't even need to mask because I think this is like such a dry impression, but let's mask off just a little bit just in case here. Okay, there was some green on there from like a previous impression. Okay, so there's trees like back in there. Now that I have that one, we have to have some more like back in here. Okay. If this piece ever goes up for auction, remember the turmoil that I went through in figuring this one out. I'm just joking, folks. It's not any big deal. But you do kind of, you kind of let the piece kind of dictate what you do on the next step. We can kind of plan out to an extent with our compositions, but, inevitably, during the process, you're going to come up with other types of things that you didn't really consider even like 5 minutes before. So I'm looking at this piece now and I'm liking that, but I like that layer of depth. So kind of, we're kind of establishing more of it. Like this piece right here would look good right in here, kind of in that same kind of value, light and dark. And really, the more you fill in with your impressions too, the less kind of coloring we'll have to do later because it's already been, kind of filled in there. So, okay, so I'm wiping off the kind of the perimeter of this one right here. So let's do this. Okay, and I'm starting to like these just plain you know, lemon yellow, canary yellow, whatever. Just impressions, which, okay, I wasn't, I need to get a flat removal of that color back there. I usually don't just stamp out something in yellow because you can't see it too much. All right, but yellow, something like that. I'm starting to see what this piece can look like a little bit more now. Anyone here live anywhere around some aspens? That's the color that's in California. If you get fall foliage anywhere, it's usually like aspen trees somewhere, like in the Sierras. There's not a lot of other colors up there. You know, it's the aspen trees basically. But there used to be more of them around California. I've mentioned in my past videos that apparently what they started doing at one point in time, like in the Southern California mountains, and there's like a lot of mountains in Southern California, like Big Bear and stuff like that, but they introduced beavers into those areas, I don't know, whatever, 100 years ago or something like that, because they kind of improved the ecosystems, right? But what they did was they ended up chopping down, of course, and they did what beavers did, and they chopped down all the aspen groves. So there's like one hike that I did one time. I don't know what elevation it was, 5,000 feet up or something like that. And it was called the Aspen Grove Hike because there's like one aspen grove in that whole mountain system because, the beavers chopped them all down when they introduced them. They realized it was a bad idea, kind of later on. But they said, kind of introducing beavers into an area is a lot easier than kind of removing them. So it took them a while to get them out of there. All right, let's see here. Let's get a little bit of a tree down in this area like this. We ended up doing more than just kind of a peekaboo aspen area, but but that's more of what I wanted on this one. Okay. This one's a little bit lighter, and it's not going to show up in there, but we'll use some of the like yellow paint pens over the top of this one, where it'll stand out in front of this one right here. So thank goodness for the paint pens these days, that are out there. They've added a ton of kind of possibilities with what I'm doing, at least, in these scenes. In order, in adding light tones over the top of dark ones. Before, we couldn't do that with dye-based inks because they're transparent. Cut and dry by Ranger, thank you. I didn't know that either. I don't know. Maybe Cynthia, maybe they're the one that mentioned it in the past. Yeah, we got to make do, like with those color box stylus tools, stuff that's just not out there anymore. If there are other things, kind of, the one thing I don't like, I don't like things going, disappearing, from production anyway, but especially if it's a really good product that hasn't been kind of replaced by anything better, color box stylus tools, the Marvy pads, you know, stuff like that. So it's like, man, we gotta make do with what we can to, you know, prolong the usage of, you know, these different types of, you know, supplies. But yeah, like Marvy, you know, they briefly had the blank pads out there, which is great. And I'm just kind of surprised those kind of, you know, they discontinued those. They probably made one. They probably made one run of them, is what it is. And you know, when you're doing that type of manufacturing, they probably have to print up, um, I don't know, 100, 200,000 of them to make it worth their while. Um, and they probably did one run of them, I'm guessing, and I'm guessing that was it. You know, it probably just didn't sell um, fast enough for them to want to do a second run of them. So I can understand that. Not a lot of people know about like Marvy pads. You know, people used to know, kind of, but then you know, they forgot about it, or it just, you know, it's not one of those pad lines that was heavily marketed at all. You know, because Marvy, you know, that the pad, the inks, even the Marvy markers were the most popular thing, but you know, their pads, that was like one of like 1,000 different products from Marvy or Cheetah. So it's like they didn't really, you know, focus on that too much. So all those other types of ink brand lines were, you know, more heavily marketed and promoted, you know, design teams for certain manufacturers and stuff like that. Marvy didn't have any of that. All right, so these are some other little sprouts here that are going to be coming up, you know, right around in here. I don't know how they'll look, but yeah, we'll see. But kind of an explosion of I don't know, whatever golden hue throughout here. All right, so this is my kind of my foundation right here. Um, a lot of times, you know, when I'm doing these types of things, it doesn't involve like these, you know, deciduous trees in full color, you know, with lighting, backlighting or something like that. So I would just go in here and, you know, I would just do everything normally in black and white, and then I would start toning it in. But I had to stamp these trees in there, you know what I mean? Because I can't have everything like super dark in the background. The paint pens will cover up things to an extent, but not like a big, you know, solid area of black or something like that. So, but now, you know, when you're working in this kind of fashion right here, oh, I need some other things down here in this water to finish off this stream. But what you do is you just kind of get this established in here, and then you just kind of decide where is your lighting coming from. And I was going to have it coming from between these trees right here, okay, like through here. So you just kind of plan on your shading accordingly. So on all of these trees right here, I'm going to have right side shading applied to them, okay? I have to kind of figure out what colors I'm going to do in the sky too, but you know, I'm not sure about that one yet. And the grass down here, I'll probably have some lighting coming through here a little bit, like here and here, kind of at an angle like that. And then some of these waters right in here will be a little bit shaded and darkened here and there. Let's see. Hello in cloudy, hot Arizona. We've been really, it's really muggy here today, but there was a little bit more breeze. The Aspen's around Jackson, Wyoming. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I was out, when I saw some really great aspens was when I was in Estes Park in Colorado. I had a few. That was like one of my days out there. I went to Rocky Mountain National Park in between teaching classes. I take it I was teaching in Fort Collins, Colorado, and that was really fun. Seeing Rocky Mountain National Park. I had a brief time, so I just had one day. So I just checked out the entire whatever I could in one day. But it gave me the gist of the layout of the park at least. But anyways, it was. I don't think I was there in like a full fall, but there were some trees out there that were that had some really great color. And I don't know if that was the time. I think that might have been the time, right, when I designed these Quaking Aspen stamps. I guess that would be about the time. This was done in 2001. I bet you I was out there around 2000 or so. Okay, so we need to create some extra rocks in here. Here, I'm going to show you this thing too with bodies of water. Where did that other smaller? I have a smaller boulders with lichen. Okay, I don't want to go look for it right now, but what you do is you do the same thing that you did for your trees. You just kind of blot it off, and then you stamp it down here so that you have these rocks that are underneath the water, because inevitably, not like a little stream, you're going to be able to see the bottom of it, right? But what we usually do in bodies of water a lot of times in stamping is we just leave this blank, and then this is like blue, okay? What you can do, but if you have these subsurface images, even if it's a little bit kind of obscure, it looks like, it looks like clear water instead of just, kind of this mirrored reflection up top like that. Which you can do too, like I said, but if you can kind of create extra depth within, lakes and streams and that type of thing, I think it adds to the visuals a little bit. We're depicting depth, and it looks a little bit deeper in terms of we're always working on a two-dimensional surface right here, but we can do little tricks to represent, three-dimensional space. That's always kind of fun to do, especially if it's an easy thing to do. So in here, we just take this and blot it off like, well, I'm going to blot that off a couple times like that. Let me take out some more of this. I'll just wipe off the perimeter like this, and I'll go for some subsurface texturing like that, okay? Actually, that's a little bit dark. But I'll do this right in here, like that, okay? And all of this is going to be underneath, like, I don't know, whatever color I color that area. And then you can add it, additional layering too, right on top of it, like with some additional little pebbly textures, like this. So see those other rocks underneath there, kind of, they look like they're under the surface a little bit more. And then remember, I'm going to hit this with all the, a lot of other color on the top of it too, so. And I'm doing this in multiple impressions so that some of it's a little bit darker, some of it's a little bit lighter. All right, something like that. Be a good little spot for a little bird or something like that down there. Hello, May. Great to have you on. Glad you like the projects. Ranger made both felt and foam. Both work fine with Marvy inks, but they are too thick to fit in the Marvy boxes. Oh, got it. Okay, if you like the color-coded Marvy boxes, you have to cut part of the back off before you... that sounds familiar. And maybe you're the one I remember mentioning that, probably in one of those workshops, huh? Yeah, I couldn't remember. There was something too. Yeah, now that's sounding familiar there. Hello, Bonnie. Made the power. Was out due to storms. Where are you, Bonnie? What state? How long was your power out for? Let's see. We have rain, loud thunder, wind during the day. A few times. Oh, Montreal. Ah. Is that what all, is that what... There were so many wildfires. Is that what started it all? Were they all kind of natural? With like lightning strikes? Or electrical storms? Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to do some preliminary toning, okay? And I can do this with just black ink, okay? And then you can utilize black ink to create all the grays, but I'm going to use my Memento London Fog Gray because it's a little bit of a different tone of gray. I think we've established this before. It's a little bit, oh, I don't know, like a cool gray, right? But it's also because I can just put it onto a, I have the, maybe I should use a different ink or paper towel than that one. I'm going to get some of that yellow into my gray. Yeah, okay. Like this. Hey, a lot of people don't like using paper towels, and I get it, but I don't know. What I gotta say, it works for me. So you just have to kind of make it a little bit softer like this, okay? And you don't want to fold in it, because if you start toning in with that fold there, that fold kind of shows, so you just make it nice and flat like that. I make it out like it's almost like my thumb or something like that, or I don't know, it's like my finger goes like that. And then you just put your re-inker right on top there. I don't know, to me it's like finger painting like this, okay? But after you get that ink on there a little bit, just kind of do a little bit of a flattening out like this, okay? And it also pushes some of that ink back in there. And then you might have to do it again like that. So, you push some of the ink back in, it's kind of spread out, but you've also kind of softened the surface of that by doing that little thing like that too. Okay, and I don't know, like I said, it's just like kind of like finger painting to me. All right, now this is a little bit darker on here than what I want, so let me just kind of, I'm going to establish this in some of my lighter or darker areas like this, okay? And I'll add in some of these tones right here where, I want some of it to be a little bit darker. Okay. So here's this tree in the background. Maybe that's a little bit too dark, ideally, but go like this. Okay, now it's getting kind of drier on here, so it's coming off a little bit lighter. So you see kind of the lighting direction on my trees now. They're all being kind of left side illuminated like that. I'm not pressing hard with this too. It's just got with a real light touch, okay? Now it's getting very dry on here, so I'm going to utilize the drier version of it to get a lighter application of ink onto certain areas, okay? On the trees, it's kind of okay that they're somewhat darkened like that. Now remember, they're going to be gray trees, okay? I'm going to be going over the top of them with a bunch of different warm tone alcohol inks, so it's just going to serve as kind of a base coat shadow, you know, whatever, established shadow in there, okay? I mean, ideally, too, this, you know, this gray tone would be a little bit more of a warmer gray. It's a cooler gray, but again, it's going to be such a subsurface kind of established tone. I'm not really worried about it. I'm going to use a lot of other colors right over the top of that, okay? All right, so coming in here into the water like this. And see, I'm still using that one inking. And again, you know, this is a, you know, it's almost like a matte coat, you know, 11 by 17. So one inking like this that's still got all that up top, and I'm still kind of inking in with it. That's what's really good about using kind of absorbent materials like that. They absorb, you know, so that if they absorb, then they can, you know, transfer that ink out, you know, out of what they're, you know, whatever they absorbed. And I'm saying that because some of the materials that some people, you know, is that some, I don't know, companies kind of make out there, or, you know, they kind of promote as kind of a wet media applicator. They're synthetic materials, so they don't absorb. They're not made to absorb. They're made to wick like things, you know, like polyesters wick moisture. They don't absorb it. So if you're out kind of sweating in winter time, you know, you wear kind of, you know, polyesters so that it gets the moisture away from your bodies. Well, that's the same thing that, you know, some of these types of ink applicators, you know, are being sold as, but they're really kind of like makeup brushes. They're good for certain things, but, you know, you're not going to get a lot of coverage with them. So for me, when I was using them, in terms of the way that I use them, like I said, you can do a much lighter kind of application of them if you want just a little bit of color down. But I don't see them as really great blending tools because they just don't pick up enough, you know, ink for that. So if there's no ink to blend with, it just takes forever. All right, so anyways, so that's one inking right there. And, you know, let's take a couple more drops like this. Now I got to be careful about this. When I start going on here again, it, you know, it's going to be fairly dark. So maybe just only do it like a couple drops. And let me add it. I'm going to start off in some of my darker areas too. Okay. First, so that it starts to dry out on here again, and then I can go down in, you know, some of my lighter areas again. So every time you re-ink, just start off in kind of an area that you've already gone over, maybe. Augusta, Georgia. Oh my gosh. I think the only kind of areas that we probably are having a little bit of potential rain out here is at the high elevations. I saw this big, huge cumulus cloud over this mountain range. Probably, I don't know, I was guessing it was out in this mountain range that I usually used to go hiking at that gets up to about 10,000 feet. But nothing crazy, you know, like in so many other areas with all these, you know, flooding and fires and all that going on. But I am just hoping that the fall, in our highest fire season, we get these things called Santa Ana winds out here. Real dry winds coming off of the desert, blowing like east to west. And that's the times when, I don't know, we're in our kind of worst fire season. All right, but do you see what's kind of happening here? We're, just with this grayscale, when you work this way, with like a foundation coat like this, it really kind of gives you a big head start, and you can really kind of start to see your lighting scheme of your pieces like this. Okay. And on a piece like this, again, it's like finger painting. You're saying, hey, Kevin, we don't finger paint. You know what I mean? We did that like in kindergarten, you know? But I don't know. Hey, they didn't have all those like bath crayons and stuff like that when I was a kid. So you get to live some of those things that your kids got to do, your grandkids got to do. So we get to have our fun. Okay, so establishing a little bit of the shading right at the base of these trees like this. And you can kind of go directional lighting too if you kind of designate a certain point like this and you go down like this, like at the base of this tree. Let's see here. Here's my angle. Let's say there was a light source like this, then you go down like this to this tree trunk right there, and that would be the angle of that shadow. This angle of this one's like the base of that one, so the angle of that shadow would be this way. This one right here would be kind of like this. I need a longer, piece of scrap here, but that's just, now this isn't like concrete or something like this. It's supposed to be like undulating, terrain, so maybe you go with your shadow a little bit at the angle of your grasses or something like that. But that's just to give you kind of a rough idea of how you can kind of direct your shadows to reflect the the location of your light in there. Okay. But I'm just kind of faking it here. I'm just kind of angling these, different shadows being cast by these, the larger trees at a certain angle, to give it kind of a rough kind of direction, I guess. $2,500 lightning strikes. Oh my gosh. Never seen the likes of it. That is insane. It's too bad they can't like harness. That's what my dad always used to say. Things like that. Too bad they can't harness that, and use it for just natural energy. Okay. Storms everywhere. It's extremes of weather these days, that's for sure. Up in the Sierras, I think I mentioned this last week too, but they were having 4th of July skiing because of the just the sheer amount of rainfall or snowfall over the winter, and I think mostly spring up there. But they were planning on being open. They said that they can be open for like most of July, I think. I don't know if that's still the case, but because it really warmed up. But I don't know. I was pretty amazed. All right, let's see. Sky is purple there. Take photos, Laura. All right, I wonder if the sky purple there because of sediment in the air then, like from fires or something like that around different areas. Might be coming down from like Canada or something like that. I remember there was some really different colored skies back I think it was around 1884 or something like that. It was from some volcano, like around, on the other side of the world, putting all that sediment in the air or in the atmosphere. All right, so anyways, we're still here. I'm talking about everything else but this piece right here. But see, going with this is just one ink right here, and it's really kind of establishing. It's a really good establishing. Foundational color for all the colors that I'm eventually going to add to this piece. You don't have to have everything kind of designated and refined in terms of light and dark in this, but it certainly does cover a lot of area. Like, see, on certain rocks here, I'm kind of establishing this rock is a little bit dark at the base and lighter on the tops, because that's the way that, that rock stamp is. Okay, so a lot of what you do in terms of your light and shade is just kind of establishing what's already on here. It's reestablishing it. So you can see this rock right here is lighter on top and it's darker on the, the base, right? And all these portions right here. So it's seen this form as a three-dimensional object, and all you do is just kind of at the base of them, just to reiterate them, you make them a little bit darker on the bases like this, and you make, these areas on the top, just you retain that light. So where this, it just is a bunch of grass in here, in order to make that look like it's not, flat or something like that. And if it was snow, then you make it, it's a little bit more leveled off or something like that. But in order to make this a little bit more varied, what you do is you just kind of, you vary it like this. Here's a little bit of light, darker, lighter, darker, light, like that, okay? So see what's going on in the grass is like this. We have light, dark, light. That's the same thing that's going on here. Here's a little bit lighter, darker, a little bit lighter there, darker there. You know what I mean? So you just kind of, you treat all of your different objects and areas with a little bit of this oscillation of light and dark. We call it like checkerboarding, okay? Like this, so I've made this a little bit lighter up here, and then I've kind of colored through here, and it's lighter down here. Here's light, dark, light. Here's light, dark, light. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's not like, which one of these rocks, I can't tell, should be lighter than darker. You know what I mean? That doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter as much as, just kind of having that oscillation in there, because now it looks like lighting in there as opposed to something that's kind of flat. These objects look a little bit more three-dimensional that way, okay? And then, just as you move through your other coloring and everything like that, you just, you retain whatever you've established for the most part. You can tweak it or something like that, but just through, kind of random kind of applications of varied tone, okay? You just kind of establish, whatever you've established kind of randomly too, because I'm going around here. I'm not like targeting things like too selectively, okay? But like, right here, I just kind of broke up that big area of light with a little bit of tone through it. That, I don't know, who knows? It could be shading from this, tree up here or something like that. But I mean, who cares? It's just a little bit different, okay? So it looks, again, a little bit more varied, and it looks like light like that. Thank God for AC, yeah. Okay, now I'm adding some of this tone up into my sky. I'm going to add just a little bit, just to kind of cap off the top. Oh, on this one right here, I don't think I used on Alluring Acadia, I didn't use any colored pencils, okay? That one was on glossy cardstock too. So on this one, I can use some colored pencils in my tree trunks as well, which will be cool, or anywhere down here. Okay, so with this tone right here, I'm kind of going with a little bit of a darker tone up top here like this. All right, it's darker because I'm just using it more. And then as I'm moving down like this, I know I'm moving up, but it's upside down. I'm just using a little bit less pressure, so I'm getting this transitioning value scale from a little bit darker to a little bit lighter down like that, okay? So you can see right here. It's real, you know, roughly added to. It's not smooth at all. I preferred it was smooth, but, you know, I couldn't do it here with this dry kind of thing. But again, it's kind of established that. So you see this little horizon glow down here. But see this how it's a little bit kind of like darker up here and a little bit lighter like that? Well, that's what I'm doing down here too. You can't really see it so much. Well, you can see it here a little bit, but I'm coming like this. And then where it's up here, that's just the water. And I'm kind of doing it a little bit on these rocks right here. You see there's some tone right here and it's lighter right there. It's some tone right there and lighter right there. So it's the exact same thing, you know. All right, something like that. And this is, you have a little bit of this tone right over here, so that makes that rock stand out a little bit more. Okay. Okay. I'm surprised that I haven't shred this paper towel out completely. It's starting to fray a little bit, but it's still not too bad. Let's see, this scene will be very interesting to color to bring the depth and foreground to life. Yeah. The depth, yeah, the foreground will be really fun. I'm really looking forward to these areas in here too, and really creating that kind of shimmer across those trees. Okay, so I'm going to do this a little bit at the base of these trees too, so the base is a little bit darker. Like that. I think it's going to kind of plant those trees into the foundation a little bit more like that. Maybe over here too. So you can get a little bit darker just by applying more of this. When you need to kind of move on to this is when you're applying it and it's like, okay, it's not really getting any darker. You know, because if you use 1,000, you know, I don't know, whatever tone coats of that, that's going to be super saturated and as dark as that gray is going to go. You know, be it, you know, whatever, 10 applications over it. You know, if you had you know, another 100 applications, it's not going to get any darker. Okay. And that's generally when I know, okay, it's time to move on to the other colors. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Let's get to like that. I'm really adding a lot of this tone right at the base of these rocks here. All right, so the benefits of re-inkers. I just directed someone to that video fairly recently. It just makes, you know, that re-inker tone in your first color, it just makes things go so much faster, and you know, to get a really good foundation of whatever shadow and light going on there and establishing that. Now remember, if you ever tone out too much stuff, it's, oh my god, I got rid of too much light in here or something like that. It's all, you know, it's all gray or something like that. I should have left some lighter in here. You know, you can come back into it later on with, you know, a little bit of like tone with your white pigment ink, okay? But what you can also do is, let's say this got all gray in here. It's like, oh my god, I wanted it to, you know, depict light in here a little bit more. You can always make this area in here, just around there, a little bit darker, or keep making it darker and darker and darker right around here, but leave this this color gray, and then just by contrast, that gray, when you're done, is going to look lighter, okay? So you can define your lights again by contrast, okay? And it's not a matter of like, oh my God, it's never going to be light in there again. We'll just make the areas around it darker, and then it's lighter again by contrast. It's not going to be white, but it'll be much, much lighter. All right, so I'm going to just go with one more tone, I think, on here. Maybe we'll establish some of the browns, and I think I'll do that in the dye-based inks. And I think in like part 2 of this one, I'll start coming in here, I think, with some alcohol inks or something like that. Maybe with some other dye-based inks. But I want to warm this up a little bit. Okay, so I don't have... Okay, so I'm out of some of my re-inkers for my distress inks, like a warm tone, like an antique linen or an old paper or something like that. That would be really fantastic for that. But I happen to have this old peach Bellini, which I think is a little bit more peachish. It used to be... I think it used to be more yellowish and tan colored than I remember, but I think I remember using this not too long ago, and it was redder than what I remembered. But it's still a fairly light tone, okay? And again, it's not going to be this very noticeable color. It'll warm things up and provide a little bit of the, subsurface glow to these other colors that I apply over it. But again, it's just this foundation color. It's a base layer coat that's going to be getting covered up, so I'm not worried about what it looks like, when it's being applied or post-application, okay? Because that's not going to be the color of those areas anyways. It's a base layer color for kind of coverage, a little bit more lighting, but kind of it's establishing a little bit more warmth in the areas that I want it established. And I want this scene in general to be warm, toned, okay? So that's what color it is right there, so. And it's these seashells, or the Adirondack lights as they later became called, they were made to be shadow stamping inks. So, you stamp something out in whatever color it was, then you stamp out, some offset impression of it in one of these, and it gave, the impression that it was like a, casting a shadow, I guess. I didn't know anyone that did that, but I really liked it as a base layer color. I mean, if you, do something as a shadow, you can always just kind of stamp it like this, and then you just go with the second impression, you go like that, you know what I mean? So I always wondered, I thought, who was, I don't know, is a lot of people doing, shadows where they needed like a separate pad for that? They might need a separate pad for that, but, are they going to be doing it so much that they needed like a full re-inker? I mean, how many shadows are we stamping out? One time I was talking to someone from Ranger, and I was thinking, I don't know who's going to be using these inks, but I loved them, and I would have all my classes start off with some sort of seashells, real pale tone as their base layer color, and that was with this, that was with the color box stylus tools, and I just, we put, a dollop of ink out on everyone's places, and they would just sop it up with the color box stylus. So color box stylus tool, for those that don't know, is a wand with a sponge tip applicator on it, okay? And people just tone into their scenes like that. But some of the dangers, and I would always show them what not to do, so it didn't happen in the workshops. But sometimes when people got those stylus tools, they started scrubbing with it on their paper, okay, with like very little ink on there, so it didn't glide very well. But when I'd have them dip into one of the re-inker inks and just start applying it that way, it was just so, juicy of a application of media that first of all, they got a really good base layer application of colors down, and that made it easier for everyone to blend in their medium and darker tones, but it made all their pieces nice and glowing and saturated with tone, and no one ripped those things anymore because it was just so slippery and you can move it around. And that was when I started using re-inkers for their first colors. It solved all the problems of and I didn't really, like I said, people just needed to kind of have a little bit more touch, and everyone did because I already showed them what to do in the live workshops. But it was like at conventions, like in the make and takes, where you have people coming in and out, and just sitting down, and I don't know, we're doing, we have like, I don't know, whatever, 10 people at the table. When you started having them do that with the inkers, zero problems or zero issues with that. And again, it just made things go by so much faster too, because they got like a big, huge applications of color really, really fast. All right, so anyways, there's the peach Bellini like that. You see, things are kind of warming up a little bit like that, but I'm still kind of retaining some of those lighter areas in there, maybe all the way to white. Sometimes I go a little bit too crazy and I like lose some of that white in there, but like I said, I don't know, I just go with it from there. Let's see, I can never find stamps like yours. Where are they sold? Well, Stampscapes are sold on stampscapes.com, eh? Did someone else answer that? Or you can just look and see if there's a seller in your area. I don't know. There's not very many stores around, but I don't know. Are you in the U.S., May? Where'd you say you're from? Georgia, was it? Yeah, most companies will have like a domain. Yeah, sometimes they'll have like a website or something like that, or a Facebook page instead, but that's usually stores. But the manufacturers, it's usually just their name.com. All right, so I'm hitting this area up in here as the second layer, like this. I'm making it a little bit streaky, like, skies usually are. And this is a good color to do it in because it's so light. All right. Some of these areas are starting to look a little bit blurry with the imagery down there. But again, that's just a guideline because I'm going to be putting in my alcohol ink coloring over the top of it. But again, it's mostly the paint pen applications that will define those trees nice and crisp. So we're kind of working from very defined here with our impressions and things like that. Then things get a little bit blurry, as we start adding in colors. Things get muddled too. Things can get really muddled and muddy too with a lot of the colors that I add in there. But the crispness comes back in again with those paint pen embellishments in here, okay? So keep that in mind. This is where people kind of, not really right here, but when I start adding other colors, it starts getting really muddled. And that's when people think, oh my God, this is really hard to do because they're on step number or whatever. They're on step number 5, but they're thinking it should look like step number, whatever, 12, or something like that. But it kind of gets a little bit muddled here as you blend in all of these other types of colors over the top of it. Or over the top of one another. All right. So I know this is warm tones down here, but I am going to add in some bluish tinges in there later on. These colors right down here, especially like this peach Bellini, it's so light that, it'll influence kind of the end result, but it's not going to be so influential that you can't add even completely different hues over the top of that than what it is. It's a warm, kind of peachish tone, and I'm going to be adding like blue tones over the top of it, but it'll be just fine because it'll be more dominant and bright of those colors that I'll be adding over the top like that. John tried, but the camera just doesn't do it justice. Yeah, it's hard to capture those tones up there, huh? Those colors, colored light, Okay, let's see. Hello, Bugs. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that river snow, that stream bank right there was it was the changing of it. I wanted to do that little bit. The trick down here was getting it kind of meandering like that a little bit with the amount of space that we had to work with. Oh, I already forgot to do that thing. So I was saying that we needed some like other little rocks up here, right? As it moves away from that. So I'm going to put like another, like couple of rocks. I should go find my other. Oh, here we go. So here's this boulders, little boulders with lichen right here. I'm going to put a couple of these like a little bit higher up here, kind of going off into the distance so it's not just right here. So that's what I was saying we need to do, but I almost forgot. I mean, it doesn't absolutely need it, but I think having this kind of a smaller, bit of it within this space as it moves away from the bank is a good idea to do. Now, if you don't have a smaller version of it, then maybe you can just use like the top of one of these larger ones like that. Okay, so I'm going to mask this off like this. And we'll just get like these little peekaboo like right in here maybe. Because it stands to reason that there'd be some of these other rocks, farther away from, that bank there, like that. All right, so something like that. I mean, you can use other rocks too. It doesn't have to be the exact same one either. Let's put this, let's use a little bit more right here maybe, just to make it a little bit different from those other two impressions right there. All right, I don't know, you see those in there? And, okay, I use this on just about everything, but let's do it again here. Here's my tiny rocks. Just for a little bit of a textural, whatever, variety in here. Hope you can see it a little bit. See, like, right at the base of those. And it kind of acts as a little bit of a shading device, too. Like that. When you're stamping out these tiny rocks, make sure that you stamp out exactly 75 impressions per scene too, okay? Okay, I went a little bit crazy with that, but I think that really helped it, didn't it? From a textual standpoint. It added that crisp element back into it, which again the other elements are going to do, but it was getting a little bit soft in there. I was joking about the 75, okay. All right, but there we go here. I'm picking up some of my ink too. You can see there's my peach Bellini, and you can see that black that it picked up off of this because I'm kind of rubbing it like that, okay? But this might be a good time to stop this part one of this, just to let these kind of set up and dry a little bit more. Because, I don't No, I don't. Okay, I've never had anything soak through like that, but when you're using these types of re-inkers as your foundation and you're applying a lot of these tones like that, like color, it's not super dark or anything like that, but gosh, I'm losing my voice now. It's too hot in here. This does start to get a little bit saturated, which is kind of good in some ways because you can kind of blend your colors into it a little bit more. You know, the more colors you add on over the top of that, being that this is a little bit moist, it blends in a little bit more. But the other side of it is that, you know, it doesn't transfer your ink onto there so much because this is getting a little bit saturated right now. So if you allow this to dry, you know, it'll become very absorbent again, and then we won't get so much of that ink, you know, getting muddled and kind of, you know, applying to, you know, our applicators like this too. So what I want to start doing too is I'm going to come into these in part 2 of this. Is I want to utilize a lot of my alcohol pens, some of my new, you know, the skin tone markers for my brown tones, and I want to start blending in a lot of these colors onto these trees here. And what happens is too, is on my first kind of experiment with it, I started coloring, you know, kind of moist impressions still. So I want to see what these things will do over dry impressions and inks like that, so it doesn't, you know, I'm not dragging out some of the dye-based colors that are just still wet with the alcohol pens here. And I don't know, we'll come up with some different color schemes in here too. Maybe some different golden tones in here over the grassy textures. Maybe have a little bit of green tones in there too, residual green from whatever the summers, you know, going into fall or something like that. And we'll have a little bit of bluish tones down here, but hopefully we will come up with a good color scheme for this, for you know, to create some harmony between the different colored objects and such. So I don't know, I'll have to figure it out. Not sure what colors I'm going to be using on here quite yet, but we shall see. Definitely some greens, you know, some greens, browns, and more golden tones into here. My favorite part of this one, I don't know if I'll get to it. It'd probably be like step 3 or something like that, or video 3, but it's definitely going to be using the paint pens in this one. You know, so we'll go with, you know, some really good, you know, golden tones in here, some greenish tinges in here, and that'll give this scene a lot of that sparkle that I'm going after when I'm thinking about, especially backlit, you know, fall, whatever, deciduous foliage in here. So, yeah. And we'll come up with some sort of little focal point in here. You know, I was thinking a deer or something like that, maybe in here, you know, a silhouette of a deer maybe backlit against this foliage in here. I'm not sure. We'll come up with something, some, you know, kind of focal landing, you know, spot for our I don't know what that might be. I'll have to think about that. Canada, Quebec, near Montreal. I was just watching a movie that was done in Quebec. It was in French, but it was French, you know, French Quebec. Because I was saying, that's not France. So my wife looked it up as we were watching. She goes, oh, that's in Quebec. So, yeah. It was Quebec's entry into the zombie genre. Okay, so Ginger, I'm using a semi-gloss cardstock by a company that's no longer around. It was Appleton Papers that I probably bought 20 years ago or something like that. But any 11 by 17 semi-gloss should be really good. Or if it's the Hamilco paper that's on like Amazon's and stuff like that. I think it's in Canada, Amazon Canada too, right, Linda? You get to Hamilco. The Hamilco glossy is like a semi-gloss of other brands, okay? So, I don't know. Even visually and touch and everything like that, it's like the same. So now this one, and again, I'm doing This one would have been good and glossy too, but I'll be able to do things like colored pencils on here. And I forget that there was another reason I was doing this one on the semi-gloss as opposed to a glossy too. I don't remember what it was. I came up with the idea of doing this scene like 5 minutes before I did it. Okay, I didn't know what I was going to do tonight, but I don't know. I have a backlog of like 1,000 things that I want to do, so it's not like hard coming up with anything on the fly either. But yeah, so I hope this one comes out well. It's a good start, I think. Okay, so I did some different things than I've done in the past. I haven't really stamped out things in just this like canary yellow, before, and kind of doing. I don't remember if I've done like kind of a light deciduous in front of a dark, kind of evergreen like that. But I thought we might as well, or I have some of these like branches going a little bit in front of this one here. But I figured with the paint pens, we might as well give it a shot, And I have some of this deciduous down here, which it's completely dark in the background. But again, I'm hoping that the paint pens are opaque enough to where I'm going to be able to cover that up with no problem and have it kind of blend in with the background like it's in the shadows as well. So I still don't know how that's going to work out. But again, I might do something where when we get to that point too, I might add some, colored paint pen dots down here, the acrylic, and then kind of it tends to get, kind of see-through when it dries. So I think I might add some preliminary detailing like that down there and then spray seal it. Okay. So that then I can add those, more layering on the top of that, where it's not, if it's physically merging, if that's why it turns kind of darker when it dries, it won't do that because I'll have that layer of sealant in between the layers of acrylics. So I'm hoping that works well. I usually don't take the time to do that if I'm working on a quarter page card. I'm not gonna layer, add, a bunch of layers of, spray sealant and stuff like that in between. But I thought, let's do this larger piece and let's see how it works out. So, yeah. What do you mean, Jeannie? Yeah, so what Jeannie's saying right here, she wished she can come up with a composition like this, meaning something simple. Because no one does more like complex compositions than you. You might not do, I don't know if you've done 11 by 17, but this one's like a simple one. This is like the same rocks from here over there. It's like the same things like from right here, here, and here. That's like the same foreground, foliage, rocks, and trees. It's like foreground, foliage, rocks, and trees, It's the same thing. But your pieces go into like other things though. But yeah, Jeannie, Jeannie, go get a piece of like 40 by 60, I think, for you. Go get a piece of like illustration board, or at least 20 by 30 maybe. You can do it 11 by 17, as a preliminary, but I think your piece, your like working size might be more like go get like a hot press illustration board or something like that, or you can cut it down to whatever size you want. 24 by 36 or something might be kind of interesting. But yeah, I think going big for you might be kind of eye-opening in terms of, I don't know, maybe the freedom to do that. You can even do your pieces, I don't do it whatever is going to be comfortable for you, but working large might be really fun. Hello, Froggy Fresh. We were looking for Waldo. Hope you found him. You found him lots of times. It was really cool. So we were talking about, yeah, we should do like one of those monster maps going forward, where we have some kind of like a little figure. We all should get the same like little figure or something like that and hide it and like those monster maps or something like that, ones that are like really super cluttered. I don't know. Maybe we can have like a some sort of like little kind of obscure animal, and like in all of our scenes, we can put like a, I don't know, it'd be like a squirrel head or something like that, popping out from behind a tree or something. And then whoever logs on to the Stampscapes Facebook group, in some of the scenes that are designated, they can also enjoy the scene, but they can also look for squirrel or something like that. All right, so folks, I'm going to jump on. I don't know. I'm probably going to jump on over the weekend or something like that. Part 2 is not going to be next Friday because I'm not going to be able to wait that long to get to this, because I really want to. The thing for me is I really want to see this piece come alive, so I'm going to be really curious. I can't stand looking at an unfinished piece, so anytime I walk past this, I'm going to want to get to it. But I'll come up with some other ideas. So the other things that I'm going to be doing on here, I'm sure, besides some other types of colors, is down in that grassy area, it'll be things like like bamboo leaves and maybe a little bit of that pear tart or something like that. In here, okay, it's not going to be like a plush green grass thing. That's not really the color scheme that I'm going to be going after, but I don't know, rich cocoa. Here's desert sand. I don't know if the desert sand will even show up on here. The desert sand is like really, really light in value, but summer sky, maybe a Bahama blue down in this water and a little bit up in the sky. It's not going to be like, I don't want that color right there, but maybe like this color up here. It already looks like that with that gray. But then after my the process will be adding whatever dye-based inks I want to add on here. They have to go on here before I add on the alcohol inks, because these will not apply to alcohol. So if you ever heard of that it's kind of like a thick or a thin to thick thing too. So we're adding these dye-based inks down here, and we're going to establish all of that, okay? And then after that, I can apply the alcohol inks on top of that. And then, I don't know, dye-based inks or colored pencils, I'm not sure. Or the alcohol, I guess maybe I should do, I should go with the alcohol, and then the colored pencils are a little bit thicker, right? And then we'll get to the acrylics. So, what is it? 4 mediums in here, dyes, colored pencils, alcohol pens. Oh, there's pigment, and then acrylics. So 5 colors. I don't know. That's not like totally different than what I've been doing on a lot of pieces, even if it's a quarter-page card, though. Just some of those things, some of those qualities of the different type of media lend themselves to a certain type of look. So that's why I always say just use whatever media. A lot of people, you already have all that too. A lot of you all have all that, but sometimes it's like sometimes when people are going into things, sometimes people are thinking, okay, should I do this? I'm going to do a alcohol piece, or I'm going to do a dye-based piece, or okay, this one's going to be watercolors, okay? Which those all look really cool, kind of, with mono media or whatever, you would call it, or something like that. But if certain things within your pieces, it'd be more conducive to use a different type of medium, I think it's best to go with mixed media for those types of applications. So anyway, so that's what we're going to be doing. It sounds like a part, there's going to be 5 parts to this, but no, it's after you get certain types of things established, those like the acrylic paint pens and like pigment ink will be a little bit more of a final touch type of things. Maybe not on this size, because it's really huge, and we're going to be doing a lot of pen work, but it's not going to take too long. So everything kind of speeds up the more you go along, because a lot of things are already kind of established and finalized, and done. So the big, huge, swooping things are kind of in the beginning, where you're doing a lot of coverage over everything, So, yeah. All right, folks, hope you have a great rest of evening. Thanks for joining in. Keep hydrated. Electrolytes if you need them. And we'll get to, I don't know, some other parts of this. I don't know. Maybe I'll schedule a live. If any of you've, designated notifications of when I go live, I'll try to schedule, part 2 if anyone's interested. You can always watch the replay though. But always fun with you guys. Jump in and take part and whatnot. You can give suggestions too. A lot of you don't give suggestions, but you can, and I may or may not listen to them. Kevin, more yellow, or, hey, that looks, really ugly over there, beautify that area. All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you. Maybe we'll see some of you over the weekend.